Throughout the history of our nation's westward expansion, civilization has followed the winding courses of the rivers and the streams as if they were the superhighways of our pioneer days. Since the earliest visits of the French explorers and trappers, the Missouri River has played a vital role in the economic development of the state of Missouri and westward states in the Louisiana Purchase. An early map of Missouri by Anthony Findley, dated 1826, notes the location and boundaries of the early counties forming in the state along the Missouri River. These counties include St. Louis, St. Charles, Franklin, Montgomery, Gasconade, Callaway, Cole, Boone, Cooper, Howard, Sheraton, Saline, Lilliard, and others. The counties and their borders are not as we know them today, since there were 49 changes to the map of Missouri throughout the course of the formation of these counties. Along the banks of the Missouri River, small but important communities were being established at favorable river landings along the course of the river. These early important communities include St. Louis, St. Charles, Marthasville, La Charrette, Pinckney, Cote Sandison, Jefferson City, Marion, Booneville, Franklin, Sheraton, Jefferson, and other points to the west. Lesser landings also noted include Missouri, Mexico, Alexandria, Hibernia, Nashville, and Providence. These river landing communities became the stepping-off point for the myriad of settlers that came to Missouri and points westward by keelboat and later by steamboat.
During the early years following Missouri statehood in 1821, the Missouri River was the principal corridor of navigation for the steadily increasing stream of settlers from Kentucky. Most of the early growth of Missouri was centered around the banks of the river, and it gradually moved inland. Most of these settlers came by keelboat or via the Boone's Lick Trail, which paralleled the Missouri River about 15 miles inland. The state of Missouri continued to grow, with most of the growth centered around the Missouri River. The steamboat made its first appearance on the Missouri River in 1819, and the first steamboat wreck occurred at Cote Sandison in 1819. During the early years of the history of steamboating on the Missouri River, the steamboat was principally for military uses in the more western regions of the Missouri and tributary rivers. It wasn't until the mid-1830s that the technology of the steamboat had advanced to the point that commercial ventures of steamboat commerce and transportation made its appearance on the Mississippi and Missouri rivers. St. Louis, because of its location, became one of the major traffic centers for steamboats. Commercial steamboating continued to grow, and by the mid-1840s it was a safe, reliable, and speedy means of transportation and commerce. During the decades of the 1830s, 40s, and 50s, the steamboat was the principal means of transportation for the many of the Kentucky, Virginia, and German settlers migrating into the central Missouri area, and for those settlers continuing to final destinations in the western reaches of the Missouri River watershed. Numerous towns sprang up along the banks of the river to service the needs of the steamboat transportation and to participate in the commerce opportunities available along the course of the river.
As exhibited in a painting about life on the Missouri River by Gary R. Lucy, the communities were small and rough, with focus on commerce and transportation afforded by the steamboats on the river. As the traffic increased in the 1830s and 1840s, codependent businesses sprang up to support the travel and trade. Frequent floods retarded the growth of these river communities by making it less desirable to build permanent structures of substance and beauty. By the 1850s, travel on steamboats on the river became more established, and boats of luxury and opulence began to appear on the river. Businesses to support these more luxurious means of transportation gradually appeared, as the river communities finally became of age. As exhibited in the painting of the steamer De Smet on the Missouri River at Washington, Missouri by Gary R. Lucy, communities on the lower Missouri River had grown with the booming commerce of the riverboat trade, and respectable permanent structures appeared in thriving communities that were also growing to meet the needs of permanent residents. Travel on steamboats became more dependable in the 1850s with the development of the packet service, which fixed regular routes for specific boats running on a regular schedule. It could easily be described as a commuter service. In the closing days of the zenith of the steamboat era, around 1855, these packet boats would interline with the Missouri Pacific Railroad at Jefferson City to carry passengers further west to ports in Kansas City, Westport, St. Joseph, Kansas, Nebraska, and other points westward. The following slides are steamboat advertisements appearing in the Fulton Daily Telegraph during the period 1840s and early 1850s. These advertisements for packet service are typical of the advertisement for steamboat service during this period of time. This advertisement is for the Missouri River Packet Service steamer Kit Carson. The Kit Carson ran on the lower Missouri River in 1848 and 49 and burned at St. Louis on May 17, 1849. Pictured here are advertisements for the steamers Kansas and Rowena doing local packet service in the area during the years 1849 and 1850. This advertisement specifies packet service regularly on Tuesdays from St. Louis to Glasgow and on the return trip on Friday from Glasgow, Arrow Rock, Boonville, Old Franklin, Rocheport, Mount Vernon, Providence, Nashville, and Martin's Landing. Then on Saturday, Marion, Claysville, mouth of the Cedar Creek, Jefferson City, mouth of the Osage, Cote Sandison, St. Albert, Portland, Herman, Luder Island, Pinckney, Washington, South Point, Augusta, and Point Labadee on Saturday, arriving at St. Louis early on Sunday morning. This 1854 advertisement is for packet service on Saturdays on the boat Kate Swinney. It leaves St. Louis at 5 o'clock p.m. and arrives in Cambridge and leaves Cambridge on Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. for the return trip. In addition to the notices for packet service, which is for passengers, there were also advertisements for freight service appearing along with the occasional advertisement for codependent businesses. The following group of slides are of shippers' receipts for freight consignments on steamers operating in the lower reaches of the Osage River and Missouri River in the Jefferson City area. They give us insight into the steamers operating in the area, the types of cargoes being shipped, persons making shipments, and the landings from which the cargoes are shipped. Please note that the steamer indicated in this slide is the Far West, which was immortalized in 1876 when, as the service boat of General George Armstrong Custer was piloted by Captain Grant Marsh, returned 50 badly wounded soldiers from the Battle of the Little Bighorn to Bismarck, South Dakota. Rarely leaving the wheel of the steamer, they traveled those 710 miles in 54 hours, setting a record for steamboat travel that still stands today. Other major businesses springing up in the area found their position enhanced by the availability of steamboats for shipment of raw materials and products. Callaway Mining and Manufacturing constructed a railroad, completed in the spring of 1857, to transport cannel coal from its Mammoth and Mastodon mines in the hills of Callaway County to a receiving point at Bennett's Landing at Coates Anderson, where part of the coal was distilled for coal oil and the balance either sold to steamboats to power their boilers or for shipments to waiting markets for coal in St. Louis and Jefferson City. The availability of steamboat transportation did not assure success, and fraught with financial problems, Callaway Mining and Manufacturing failed by the coming of the Civil War. In 1834, William B. Scott purchased 138 and a fraction acres of school lands in Section 16 of Township 44 North, Range 11 West, at a price of $12.67 per acre, approximately 10 times the common rate for lands in this area. The lands he purchased contained the small community of Hibernia on the banks of the Missouri River. His land patent indicated that it was assigned to Cedar City Land Company.
To the County Court of the County of Callaway. Your petitioner respectfully asks the court to grant him a license to keep a ferry from his lands above the mouth of Cedar Creek on the Missouri River to the opposite shore for the term of 1 year. 23rd August, 1838. William B. Scott.
It is not known whether William B. Scott was able to complete his plans to establish a ferry landing and ferry servicing the South Callaway Jefferson City area from Hibernia on his lands in Cedar Creek. William Scott died early in 1841, and the first known ferry service from that area was by J.T. Rogers in 1845. We see that his plans for Cedar City came to fruition in 1872, when the name was officially changed from Hibernia to Cedar City when a post office was established at that location. It wasn't long until the ferry landing on the North Shore was moved downriver, directly across the river from the Jefferson City ferry landing. The ferry landing for the Jefferson City crossing is documented on the 1879 survey maps by the Army Corps of Engineers. The north landing is currently occupied by the Farmers Sand and Gravel Plant, and the southern landing is immediately east of the old Bolivar Street Bridge approach and is documented later in this presentation. The Jefferson City Steam Ferry Landing still exists and is located off of the end of Harrison Street, which runs north and south in front of the Secretary of State's office. It is located directly on the river. It still has 5 of its steel pilings, and the river depth gauge is in existence at the site, and is approximately 100 yards west of what is to be the west end of Adrian's Island. It is pictured with the old bridge and the steamer J.R.R. Wells later in this presentation. In his bird's-eye view of Jefferson City, the capital of Missouri, in 1869, drawn by A. Ruger, Jefferson City, its homes and business district, and its bustling waterfront are depicted from the northern shore of the Missouri River from Callaway County. Up and down the Jefferson City waterfront, from the location of the current water tower of 1892 to the Missouri State Prison, no less than 14 steamboats are represented, either loading or discharging cargo and passengers, or at a full head of steam, headed either up or down the river. Only one name of a steamboat is visible in the drawing, the steamer Turner, while the rest, no doubt, are other steamboats of its time. After the seat of government moved to the city of Jefferson in 1826, the lower end of Jefferson Street became a lively commercial and transportation hub. In 1839, James A. Crump built what is now known as the Lohman Building, a sturdy stone structure that would serve as a grocery store, warehouse, tavern, telegraph office, and hotel for the growing capital city. After opening a grocery store in the basement of the west section, he sold the east section to John Yunt and the center section to E.B. Cordell and James Dunica. He then leased the upper floors from 3 co-owners and opened the Missouri House Hotel. The area became known as the Landing, and Crump's Hotel earned a reputation as a meeting place for rivermen and legislators. With the coming of the Pacific Railroad, business boomed in the 1850s. The capital city became the transfer point for goods coming from the east by rail and heading west by steamboat. Much of this activity occurred at the Landing. In 1852, Charles Moss and his brother-in-law, Charles Lohman, bought the east section of Crump's building and opened a general store. In response to a growing demand for hotel accommodations, Moss built a hotel across the street from Crump's building in 1855. His brother Christopher Moss built a new home a few yards south of the hotel. The sturdy brick house exemplifies the small red brick residence common in Jefferson City during this period of time. Charles Moss first named his hotel the Missouri Hotel, and then later the Veranda Hotel. The name changed for a third and final time when Moss returned home from service during the Civil War. He renamed his hotel the Union Hotel as a declaration of his wartime sentiments. Lohman dissolved his partnership with Moss in 1859 and eventually bought the 2 remaining sections of what would become known as Lohman Building. He subsequently developed one of the city's largest warehouses and mercantile businesses at this site. The steamer J.W. Spencer is known to have provided ferry service on the Missouri River between Jefferson City and the ferry landing on the Callaway County shore for approximately a decade before the construction of the first bridge across the Missouri River at that location. The steamer Spencer was a side-wheeler, 131 feet long by 35 feet wide, with 5-foot draft. It was built in the Howard Yards in Jeffersonville, Indiana, and launched in 1882. The steamer J.W. Spencer is shown in a glass plate negative photo taken by Jefferson City photographer B.F. Oliver. The photo is thought to be the last trip for the Spencer in the Jefferson City area, occurring on the day of the dedication of the first bridge at Jefferson City. The ferry is thought to be banked on the Callaway County shore near the current soccer fields south of Highway 63, and the water tower and a smokestack in Jefferson City Mill Bottom appears in the skyline at the left side of the photo. Appearing is a collage of clips from the B.F. Oliver photograph of people from the area in their Sunday finest participating in that very special event. The years 1857 and 1858 were the absolute zenith of the steamboat on the Missouri River, with greater tonnage of merchandise carried and passenger miles accomplished any year there before or after. At that time, there were approximately 60 packet steamers operating on the Missouri River, along with as many as 40 tramp steamers.
The Pacific Railroad, predecessor of the Missouri Pacific Railroad, reached Jefferson City in 1855 and immediately began to make inroads into the steamboat packet business. In the summer of 1856, contractual arrangements were made for 3 steamers to be incorporated as the Pacific Railroad Packet Company, providing connecting packet service with the new Pacific Railroad line, carrying rail passengers westward for the terminus in Jefferson City. Tri-weekly connections were made between St. Louis and Weston by way of Jefferson City. By 1859, the Hannibal and St. Joseph Railroad had completed its tracks to St. Joseph, Missouri, spurring further railroad steamboat packet services at that location. The competition of the new and swifter rail lines, along with the destructive effects of the Civil War, dealt a blow to the steamboat commerce from which they would never recover. Following the Civil War, the docks on the Missouri River servicing these steamboats no longer bustled, and residents of river communities rapidly deserted their communities, favoring relocating in newly forming railroad communities. The golden age of the steamboat rapidly came to a close.
The photograph, taken from a glass plate negative by B.F. Oliver, shows the dedication of the first bridge to cross the Missouri River at Jefferson City. It was constructed by private Jefferson City interests that formed the Jefferson City Bridge and Transit Company. It was completed and dedicated in October of 1895, and it effectively brought to a close the steam ferry service in the Jefferson City area. With its completion, the steamer J.W. Spencer, which had served the Jefferson City area for a decade, was transferred to the St. Charles, Missouri area to provide ferry service there. Along with the stiff competition of the railroads, the opening of the bridge finally brought to a close all but the occasional steamboat traffic in the area. The engraving of the Jefferson City Bridge appeared in the Jefferson City newspaper of the time at the completion of its construction in 1895. It depicts the bridge in all of its glory, surrounded by steamboats of the time, with an electric trolley crossing the bridge. The trolley service was added later to provide service along High Street from the intersection of Monroe and High on the east end to West Main and Dix Road on the west end. The trolley crossed the bridge and provided passenger service to North Jefferson, where the Chicago and Alton Railroad and the Katy Railroad interlined. The Old Capitol and St. Peter's can be seen in the background, as well as the railroad along the bluff of the river. The steamer J.R. Wells, whose home port was at Tuscumbia on the Osage River in Miller County, is pictured at the Jefferson City Steam Ferry Landing. The steamer Wells was the service boat of Anchor Milling Company of Tuscumbia, and the old bridge can be seen in the background with its main span rotated open for river traffic. Horse and buggy traffic can be seen on the stationary span to the north, awaiting closing of the main span. The photo is obviously prior to 1935, when the bridge was acquired by the Missouri Highway Department, and the control building on the side of the bridge was relocated to the superstructure of the main span.
The Helena was a stern-wheeled, wooden-hull packet steamer, 194 feet in length, 33 feet in beam, and 4.5 feet in draft. It was launched in 1878 in California, Pennsylvania, and destroyed in 1891, where it was snagged at Bonham Island on the Missouri River. The Helena was among steamboats plying the Osage and occasionally the Missouri River after the Civil War. This group included the following steamers: the Alice Gray, Emma, Tom Stevens, Golden Gate, Evening Star, Far West, General Meade, Aggie, Dan B. Hurlbut, Plattsmouth, John R. Hugo, Frederick, Nadine, Sport, Thomas H. Benton, J.R. Wells, Tuscumbia, Dauntless, Floyd, and the Homer C. Wright. Wheat, livestock, lumber, railroad ties, farm produce, merchandise, lead, and tiff were the principal commodities of commerce. After the establishment of railroad service through Missouri, navigation by steamboats dropped off sharply. However, the continued presence of these remaining steamers were a significant factor in regulating the cost of transportation on competing rail lines.
Little is known about the steamer David Tipton other than it was originally launched in 1900 under the name Colonel A. Mackenzie. From the photo, it is apparent that it is a side-wheeler of medium size with sufficient space for commerce and spacious accommodations for passenger service. It probably was engaged in packet service and medium-distant commerce. Little information is known about the last incarnation of the steamer Keokuk. In the succession of steamers, there have been 5 named Keokuk, the latter being built in about 1907 and lasted till about 1922. The steamer was a large boat, suitable primarily for the Mississippi River and Lower Missouri River trade. It was a stern wheeler, as evidenced from the photo. The steamer John L. Ferguson was a wooden-hull, recessed-wheel steamer built primarily for local trade and for use as a ferry boat on the Missouri River. It was built in 1876 at Grafton, Illinois, and operated primarily at St. Charles until it was destroyed in 1886. Although the steamer John L. Ferguson is indicated by records to have operated at St. Charles, the boat owner and namesake lived near Tebbets, Missouri, in South Callaway County, and owned and operated Ferguson's Landing, just east of Bonnet's Mill in Osage County. The sign on the following slide indicates the Ferguson was out of St. Louis, Missouri. The steamer John L. Ferguson was a rather unique steamboat in that it had a recessed drive wheel located amidships and was not readily observable. This arrangement was referred to as a tunnel boat and afforded some degree of protection to the drive wheels from damage of floating objects or accidents when docking. Maneuverability did suffer somewhat. This is an early photo of the steamer Wallow at Portland in 1929. It is not known where or when the Wallow was constructed. However, it was known to have provided support for the sand and gravel operation on the North Shore across from Jefferson City, as well as other duties on the Missouri River in the Jefferson City area. The Wallow is known to have operated in this area as late as the mid-1950s. A list of 534 steamboats which operated on the Missouri River prior to 1909, as compiled by Philip E. Chappell in his History of Steamboating on the Missouri River, is available from a link on this page, only in the PowerPoint version. Beginning in 1879, the Army Corps of Engineers began a complete survey of the Missouri River Basin from its origin in Montana to its confluence with the Mississippi River. The map set, published by the 1895 Missouri River Commission, consists of 83 map panels georeferenced with 3-minute lines of latitude and longitude. It is this map set which gives us a precise look at the Missouri River at the time of the survey. An idea of the contents of these maps are presented in the panels to follow. Map panel number 6 presents a detailed look at the Missouri River and surrounding river basin from a point immediately west of the community of Portland to a point approximately 3 miles east of the Jefferson City Bridge. On these maps are presented precise features of the river at the time, all tributary streams, islands and sloughs, communities, rail lines, bluff lines, schools, property owners, and fortunately steamboat landings and wrecks. The lines running at right angles to each other at odd angles to the page are those lines of latitude and longitude which georeference this map. This is a section of map panel number 6 which presents a detailed view of Jefferson City and the surrounding area. Note that it shows Jefferson City streets as they were in 1879 with no bridge crossing the river, only a ferry landing on each side. The Missouri Pacific Railroad on the south side of the river completed to Jefferson City in 1855, and the Chicago and Alton Railroad entering Cedar City from the northeast as completed in 1872. Cedar Creek is represented wandering to the east along the bluff line until it joins with Turkey Creek and flows into the Missouri River on the western edge of Cedar City. Due to severe floods in the 1880s, the course of the Missouri River has changed, and Cedar Creek now enters the Missouri River at a point approximately 4 miles west of where it did in 1879. The river is now greatly channelized, and an island no longer exists between Jefferson City and the Callaway County shore. Other changes are quite obvious once studying the map. This is another section of the map panel number 6, in which the area surrounding Cote Sanderson and the confluence of the Osage with the Missouri River is noted. Please note that the feature Cote Sanderson and also the old French village of Cote Sanderson are located on this map. The area around the confluence of the two rivers is quite confused with a number of sloughs and islands, and that the Osage River actually has two mouths. The secondary mouth was just downriver from the old French village, while the primary mouth was almost 4 miles upriver, just east of Osage City and across from Barkersville. Because of a high number of steamboat accidents in this area, the primary mouth was closed by the Army Corps of Engineers in the early 1930s, and now the eastern mouth remains. Much of the channelization has taken place in this stretch of the river, and the flow and traffic is greatly improved. The full set of 83 maps of the Missouri River Commission of 1895 map set are available through this link only in the PowerPoint display. Subsequent to the 1897 Missouri River surveys, another survey was completed in 1954, 75 years after the first survey. A set of bicolor maps were produced with the surveys superimposed in different colors, appearing in this slide. As a part of the Missouri River Commission publication of 1895, an index to the map set included a table of distances from the mouth of the Missouri River to various points of interest on all of the maps in this map set. Although the distances on the Missouri River have significantly changed due to the straightening and channelization by the Army Corps of Engineers, this index remains as an important record of what still existed on the river in 1879. This index is only available from the actual PowerPoint display. The table to the left is a small excerpt from the Missouri River Commission Index, which covers the stretch of river from the Callaway-Montgomery County line to the Callaway-Boone County line on both sides of the river. The table lists the name of the feature, the distance from the mouth of the Missouri River, and the number of the map panel upon which it appears. The James River Guide, published in 1858, includes a table of distances on many of the rivers of the United States. Although not as complete or as accurate as the Missouri River Commission Index, however, it proves to be an exceptional record of communities that existed on the river at the time of publication that no longer existed at the time of the Missouri River Commission surveys. Subsequent to the Army Corps of Engineers surveys of 1879, the Army Corps of Engineers produced a second set of survey maps, those of 1954, with 75 years intervening between the surveys. These maps, when superimposed at the same scale and colorized, graphically represent the drastic changes in the Missouri River channel in those intervening 75 years. On these maps, which cover the river from Rouleau, Nebraska, to the confluence with the Mississippi River, one can quite easily see the effects of the floods that have ravaged the Missouri River and the effects of straightening and channelization by the Army Corps of Engineers. The river channel of 1879 appears in an orange color, while the river channel of 1954 appears in aqua. The works of two men, Homer Martin Chittenden and EB Trail document the locations of steamboat wrecks as they have determined them. In some cases, significant distances separated their locations, but time and river currents may be the most significant factor to attribute the discrepancies to. In his 1895 Missouri River Commission report, Homer Martin Chittenden noted that there were 295 steamboat wrecks on the entire Missouri River. 48 wrecks were documented in the 1879 Army Corps of Engineers Missouri River survey maps along the course of the Missouri River within and contiguous to the state of Missouri. The map to the right is a generalized depiction of the location of steamboat wrecks in the Missouri River between Jefferson City and Kansas City as published by the Missouri River Commission in 1895. A steamer which was wrecked and recovered would still appear on this map. However, the boat would have had to have remained as an obstruction in the river to be located on the survey maps of 1879. Based on the 1879 Army Corps of Engineers survey maps of the Missouri River Basin, valuable location data was extracted from the georeference map panels to precisely locate all of the steamboat landings and steamboat wrecks which were designated on these maps. There were a total of 310 points of interest on both sides of the Missouri River, from the extreme northwest corner of the state to the confluence with the Mississippi River, 262 of which were steamboat landings and 48 were steamboat wrecks. The results of these determinations are presented in the map panels to follow. Based on the survey of the Missouri River Basin by the Army Corps of Engineers in 1879, a list of the known landings and steamboat wrecks of the time have been compiled. Fortunately, these survey maps were georeferenced with 3-minute lines of latitude and longitude, and as a result, the locations of these landings and wrecks can be determined quite precisely. In the following slides of various sections of the Missouri River, landing locations will be denoted by yellow markers, while the locations of the wrecks will be denoted by red markers. Those landings, which were located on both sides of the river in the eastern half of the Callaway-Osage County area, are as follows: LaBarge Landing, Portland Landing, Chamois Landing, Fisher's Landing, Harrison's Landing, Benson's Landing, St. Albert's Landing, Medora Landing, Shipley's Landing, Isbel Landing, and Hord's Landing. The wrecks in this portion of the river are as follows: Sonora, Lancaster, and the Robert Emma. Those landings, which were located on both sides of the river in the western half of the Callaway-Osage-Cole County region, are as follows. Ferguson's Landing, Coats-Sandison French Village Landing, Coats-Sandison Bennett's Landing, Deering's Landing, Barkersville Landing, Glenn's Landing, Ewing's Landing, Chapel's Landing, Jeff City Ferry Landing North, Jeff City Ferry Landing South, and Hibernia Landing. The wrecks which were indicated on this portion of the river are as follows. The Kate Howard, the XL, the Emma, and the Timur II.